Welcome back, y'all. What's happening out there in WBB land? We are back with another video, and this is a 13-part series that will chronicle every team's 2025 offseason. Each video will detail every team's current roster, their salary cap and assets, as well as look at free agent targets, needs, and an overall trajectory for the upcoming 2025 WNBA season. Without further ado, let's get it popping. The Atlanta Dream have been nothing short of spectacular at the start of free agency. Not only have they landed three of the biggest prizes of this free agent class, they haven't had to lose any core pieces in order to acquire them. One piece they did have to part ways with early Saturday was former first-round pick 6'5" forward Letitia Mehier. When Griner and Jones' names were announced, it was always going to be tricky for her to keep her spot. After the cap calculus was accounted for, she was indeed the first on the chopping block. Looking at the cap sheet before the addition of the three free agents, Atlanta had $782,000 in salary with $724,000 left to spend. General Manager Dan Padover wasted no time in filling the cupboard for Carl Smesko's first year in Atlanta.
Well, I think good basketball is good basketball, and I think we're going to play an exciting style. I think it's something that the fans of Atlanta are really going to take to really fast, and I think our players are really going to enjoy it. So if there's any adjustments that need to be made, we will, but we believe in what we're doing.
And what they're doing starts with signing three of the biggest free agents in this 2025 class. And of course, I'm talking about Brittany Griner from Phoenix, Brianna Jones from Connecticut, and Shatori Walker-Kimbrough from Washington. Unlike other moves and trades we've seen this offseason, there was little to no chatter about any of these players making Atlanta home. These signings also depart from what we had originally expected a Carl Smesko offense to look like. In the college ranks, he ran one dominated by space and pace. These signings, however, give us a different insight on what things could look like in the first year of the Carl Smesko era.
Well, you're going to go against some of the best defensive players in the world, so you're going to have to be able to do things offensively to create high percentage shots and high return shots.
High percentage shots and high return shots is exactly what Padover, Smesko, and Atlanta can expect. Last year, Griner led the WNBA in field goal percentage at 57.9%, while Jones was right behind her at 53.8%, good for third overall in the league. What we once thought might be a high-flying run-and-gun system quickly transformed into an old-school half-court game, which should make life extremely difficult for defenses trying to defend Atlanta's size and efficiency. With contracts being inked this weekend, we can now see the new official numbers for Atlanta's cap sheet. Now, if I'm a Dream fan or the front office, I certainly would have liked all three new members to take slightly less money in order to fill out this roster. As it stands today, the Dream have a total payroll of $1.36 million and 9 rostered players. That only leaves $145,000 for the 2 remaining spots, as all teams are required to carry 11 players. Before we get into what I anticipate Atlanta to do regarding those final spots, let's take a look at the team's pros and cons. We already touched on the size and efficiency, which will lead to a very good half-court offense, but also Atlanta will now boast what I consider to be one of the most stingy half-court defenses. With Jordan Canada, Ryan Howard, and Alicia Gray leading the perimeter defense, you could make the argument that that could be the best trio of defenders on the outside in the league. Adding 6'9" BG and 6'3" Brianna Jones now makes space even more difficult to come by. In my estimation, this team was constructed with the playoffs in mind, as game speed slows, possessions are drawn out, and the game becomes a series of half-court battles. But of course, as it is with every team, it's not all rainbows and sunshine, as these roster moves and their price tags have left some pretty glaring deficiencies. Taking a look at the cons, adding Griner and Jones all but assures this team is not going to be in the business of getting out and running in transition, which could potentially be a pro when taking into consideration matchups on a given night. The next on the list, however, is the biggest weakness I see for Atlanta headed into the 2025 season, and that, of course, is shooting. Atlanta was the second worst outside shooting team in the league last year, connecting on only 30% from deep. Now, one could argue a new and improved offensive scheme with better pieces should improve that, which I would agree with. but this team just simply won't be dangerous from deep in my opinion. While Howard and Gray are clearly capable shooters, and Walker Kimbrough adds a little bit from that range, I anticipate opponents to pack the paint and dare Atlanta to become more voluminous from the outside than the scheme would dictate. The last two weaknesses I see at play in Atlanta dovetail from the first two. The Dream will play one style and won't be considered one of the more versatile rosters by any stretch. Also, as I alluded to the size of those free agent contracts, it really hamstrung this team as far as depth is concerned at certain positions. Now, as for what Atlanta should do with these final two roster spots, I don't think with 145,000 remaining, there's too many options. I see two of these four players making the final two roster spots. From left to right, we have Dream players from last year, Lorella Kubai and Maya Caldwell, followed by Atlanta's draft picks from a season ago, Nadia Opach and Izzy Borlace. I really don't see the young Australians coming over to this particular Dream squad, so look for Kubai and Caldwell to be the two, whom both have quality W experience, make far more sense. Looking at the final updated cap sheet, Atlanta will have 11 rostered players with a total payroll of $1.49 million, leaving just a whisker over 10,000 remaining. It remains unclear whether Pat Over is working the phones in effort to acquire some desperately needed shooting via trade, but if he is, the three contracts they'd be most likely shopping would be Haley Jones, Naz Hillman, and Nia Coffey. Now, I don't see Hillman going anywhere, but I do think that is the player they could get the most for. If there were takers on the other two, Nia Coffey's $150,000 contract could make room for that much needed shooting. Regardless of what else transpires for the Dream this offseason, I think the front office has done a masterful job of putting a formidable team together, particularly when you consider all the uncertainty with the new CBA looming in 2026. While I've highlighted the pros and cons of this team, I do believe they stand a very good chance to be matchup nightmares for several teams in the W, and I definitely give them more than a puncher's chance come the playoffs. But now I pass the question to you. Do you like the Dream signings? Do you think they overpaid? Let me know in the comments if you think this team is a second round playoff squad. And as always, like, share, and hey, hit that subscribe button. It's free.